Right. Hey, everyone. My name is Jesse Wieland. I'm the Associate Director at the Office of National Fellowships. I'm joining me is also Christine, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Yes, my name is Christine Perry, and I am the current graduate assistant for the Office of National Fellowships, and I am kind of the contact liaison for Project Horseshoe Farm.
And so we are extremely lucky to have both Claire and Libby with us today to tell us a little bit more about Project Horseshoe Farm and go through that opportunity. And then we'll be hanging out at the end for any questions that you may have. But Claire and Libby, feel free to take it away.
Great, thank you. So I'm Claire. I'm originally from Jacksonville, Florida. I went to the University of Notre Dame and studied biochemistry. And then I came down to Project Horseshoe Farm because I was interested in learning more about rural medicine and sort of the challenges that rural communities face, especially when it comes to sort of resources and access to those resources and transportation. And I'm planning on going to med school next year.
Hi guys, I'm Libby. I'm actually from Pennsylvania, so I grew up, if you've ever watched The Office, from Scranton, Pennsylvania. But I went to school at the University of Pittsburgh, and I, along with Claire, am planning to go to medical school. And as you'll learn later, we're both from the Marion site. So we have a few different sites, but we're both currently working in Alabama together. Yeah.
We have a little presentation that we like to do with you guys. Let me pull it up. I'm not super technologically advanced, so sorry in advance. Oh no, yeah, wrong. See, like I said, not technologically. Can everyone see this okay? All right. So we're from Project Horseshoe Farm, and it's a nonprofit focused on building on the strengths of the community, especially when it comes to improving community health and then shaping us to be citizen service leaders in the future moving forward. So this is kind of the outline of our presentation. So we're going to kind of go over our mission. That's really important to everything we do, and then dive a little bit into the differences between the sites, and then sort of what the fellowship is about and the details, and then a little bit of changing we've had to do because of COVID-19, you know, us and everybody else in the world. So yeah, and then we'll have for questions. So like I said, we're a nonprofit organization, and the big thing we do is trying to build on the strength of the community to improve health and well-being of vulnerable neighbors, as we like, as they're called, and preparing the citizen service leaders, which is us. So vulnerable neighbors are adults who are lonely or are struggling with multiple health conditions or just need a lot of like social support, advocacy, and we're expanding that also to children who need a little bit more mentorship. And then we are the citizen service leaders, so we're trying to develop into individuals who really serve their community and go out of their way to kind of create a better life for everybody.
Okay, so we currently have two sites in Alabama. This is one of them. It's Greensboro. Greensboro is located around, I want to say, an hour from Tuscaloosa, or 30 to 40 minutes actually from Tuscaloosa. It is the first site, so it's the most established site we do have. It comes with a lot of positives and negatives. How you want to think about it. If you're really into, you know, working with an older population, you know, Marion is more great with that. But if you really want to work with women's health and women's living, this is because Greensboro has a woman living center where they are able to directly work with those individuals. Greensboro, yeah, it's the most established site. It has a lot of history behind it. Both the areas in Alabama do have a lot of history and a lot of aspects for learning in that aspect. Anything about Greensboro, would you say? It's the biggest site, right? So it has the most fellows. So there's a good chance you would be going to Greensboro if you do apply to Project Horseshoe Farm.
Yeah, neither of us are in Greensboro, so but I don't really have a good.
If that wasn't great, we could definitely get you in touch with, if you're at Greensboro and you want to apply to the site specifically, we could definitely get you in touch with someone who is in Greensboro as well, who could give a way better definition and description of what I just gave. Yeah.
And so this is our site, Marion. These are like the worst pictures. This is the side.
Yeah, so we're from Marion. So Marion's actually in a different county than Greensboro. Greensboro's in Hale County. and we're in Perry County right now. And again, Marion is just a lot different than Greensboro and has different benefits. So we work directly with nursing homes here, kind of the big distinguisher. We also do a lot with the schools as well in Marion. We're a newer site, so we've only been really established for 4 or 5 years, but really kicking it off this year, I want to say after COVID. And we're about a middle-sized site, so we have around 6 to 7 fellows at the moment. But yeah, that's Marion. And then our last site is Pomona. So Pomona is our newest site, and that's in California. Again, different positives to this site. This site is great because you work with the large Hispanic population that is in Pomona, California. So if you are particularly great in, areas of working in those communities, or you have Spanish speaking skills, like this would be an ideal community for you to work with and, be able to help improve. They're a very new site. So they've only been around a year. So in this current site, you probably do a lot of the community center building. So whereas in Greensboro and somewhat in Marion, you would be, kind of working in established programming, where this site you would help to build the programming to get to, an ideal place.
Yeah, and the big thing about this site, if you're interested in Pomona, is it really is crucial that you speak Spanish. A lot of the health partners that we work with there, which is something we'll explain later, do only speak Spanish or speak primarily Spanish. And so if you're thinking of applying to that site and you don't speak Spanish, don't let that stop you necessarily, but maybe consider the Alabama sites instead, because that is kind of a huge barrier for you when you are trying to create relationships with people. And we really also want to make sure we can serve the community in the biggest capacity. So the fellowship program is usually a gap year. It says medical school or graduate school. It's really anything you want to do. We've had people do TFA after. We've had people do public health school. Med school is the most popular one. A lot of people are trying to go to med school. That makes me, sorry, to go back really one, I forgot about this. Pomona's a little more urban than a lot more urban than both the Greensboro and the Marion site. So if you're interested in rural medicine specifically or rural living, this is not the site for you. That's kind of just, yeah. So if you're more interested in like the urban population though, consider Pomona. Okay. I don't know why I thought of that randomly, but anyway, sorry. So it's a 13-month fellowship, kind of give or take a couple of weeks depending on when they start every year. They try to start with some overlap between the previous year's fellowship class, so you kind of have like a handoff and a little bit of training from there. Housing is provided. So in Greensboro, they have some cabins that were built many, many years ago at the beginning of the program. And then they also have this house, and you switch 6 months through, where if you're living in the cabins or in the house. And then in Marion, we have 2 houses. So I live in one house, and there's 5 people in my house. And then Libby lives in another house, and there's two people in her house, and her house is a lot smaller than this house. So hence that, but housing is provided. I'm not quite sure what the living situation in Pomona is in detail. So if you have questions, we can find a Pomona fellow to ask. But yeah, and you also get a stipend every month. It depends on where you are. It kind of depends on like the strict amount, but they're roughly equal, like adjusted for kind of cost of living. So you have like the same standard of living, is probably the way I'd say it, both in California and in Marion. Because obviously it's a lot cheaper to live in Alabama than it is to live in California. And so the big focus kind of is development of you as a leader and sort of as a citizen, and to kind of see what you think you want to do in the future and how you want to interact with your community in the future. So they really do try to take away some of the financial stress of that, which is something that not all other fellowship and gap year opportunities are kind of so focused on. This is a picture of Greensboro, by the way, in the background. So that's kind of fun. So a big thing we do is the main idea behind what we do is community involvement. Like that's sort of at the root of everything. So we have community engagement sites, which we do once a week, and that's a separate thing. And then we're also invited to a lot of community events in the evenings and on the weekends. And we do live like right in the community. So the pastor of the big Baptist church in Marion lives right down the road from me. And so he'll just come over and bring us like fresh blueberries and honey that he has from his bees in his yard. It's like really, really nice. I do say everyone knows where you live, so you will get like a lot of people knocking on your door, coming to talk to you. But everybody knows where everybody lives in Marion. That's just kind of how it is.
Mm-hmm. Very small town community, but very welcoming. It really doesn't depend on who you are. They're like a very, you know, like a loving community, and they're really excited for you to be a part of it, which is kind of like the biggest surprise of moving across the country to a different town. But yeah, definitely lots of community engagement and different types of engagement. So Claire actually works in a library and with a nonprofit on Wednesdays, where I work with a farm. So you get, you know, depending on your interest and what you would like to do, you definitely have different options also inside of community involvement.
And those sites, certain sites that we do every year, will kind of evolve and change as new things come to town, and we form new relationships, or we find other areas to kind of expand our involvement in the community.
Yeah, so I Claire said it's kind of an educational experience. We actually want to emphasize that this is primarily educational experience and a fellowship, not really a job. So this is kind of a big aspect of the educational part that we're trying to get across, is the group discussions. So currently every Monday night, so tonight we'll have a group discussion about a certain aspect. A lot of time we have different modules. So we just finished actually our citizenship model that talked about different aspects and what it means to be a citizen in your community. We go through kind of different topics. So biopsychosocial model and approach to medicine. So looking more holistically at the individual, leadership and management, how to be a leader in your community, or even just the management of a nonprofit in general, the overarching healthcare system and the complexities that come with it, medicine, because we are a healthcare nonprofit, and like idealism, which we have, I can't talk too much, we haven't gotten to that one yet. But our group discussions are a great way if you're in Alabama and at the Marion site, it's a great way to engage with the Greensboro site, because we actually do them together. So we're actually are able to connect between the two sites in that aspect and hear different points of view of, you know, how someone's experience in Greensboro is going versus Marion, and how they're different and similar. Yeah, the group discussions are, you know, kind of like a little Socratic circle where we're all able to share our experiences and connect it to like the topic at hand. They're great. Definitely one of the aspects we do enjoy here.
The main thing kind of drew me into this. Sorry, I just got done trying to help kids read, so that my brain's not wired correctly right now, is the Health Partners Program. And so the largest kind of component of what we do, and it's really aimed at kind of plugging in with your vulnerable neighbors, so adults and children now who just need a little extra support, either socially or kind of need someone to advocate for them. And the basic idea is that you want to have a strong, caring, stable relationship. And from that foundation, build up to help people kind of reach their health goals in all like rings of the biopsychosocial model. So we focus not only on, okay, what are you eating and are you exercising, but also what's your finance situation look like and how can we help you be more financially literate if that's something you struggle with? What's your housing situation look like? Can we get you connected to people who can help you with that? What's your transportation situation when it comes to getting to the doctor or the grocery store? And so stuff like that really sort of impact your life and well-being that you really don't think about, but do really impact your health. So a big thing that we run into a lot is people just can't get to their doctor's appointment in town. And so that's a lot of us end up driving our health partners to the doctor's appointments. And then you kind of go in with them too sometimes if they're comfortable with that. And I had one man, I kind of was the go-between between him and the doctor, because the doctor was using all this like technical language that he just really didn't understand. And so that's something you do a lot as a health partner, is really trying to connect everybody and bring them to the discussion, like to the table, and give them the resources they need to advocate for their own health. And so it's a lot of navigating the healthcare system, but at the end of the day, it's really more about building that relationship with the person and being like a consistent and caring individual in their lives. Because unfortunately, we see here, like a lot of people just kind of don't have that for whatever reasons. Their lives are sort of in turmoil. There's a lot of things going on. And so you're there to really kind of be their rock in a way. Anything to add to that?
Yeah, I would also like to add that not all health partners need these things. They may need Again, I also came from the school. They need some, but not others. For example, with one health partner, I do help with like dementia, and I just try to provide like social connection. Or another one, it's more helping her obtain disability. So there's really a lot of variability in your health partners, and a nice balance to what you are trying to help with. So you don't always need to do all of these bullet points. You actually do some with others and some you don't. So.
So this is like the housing program is a big difference actually between the Marion and Greensboro sites, like Libby was talking about earlier, at least in Alabama. Not sure if the Pomona site also do nursing home. Okay, that's what I thought. So housing support programs. So it was really started in Greensboro, and they have the ladies' house is what we call it, and they have women who struggle with like mental health and other sort of mental illness who can't have stable housing otherwise. They come and they live in this house. So it's like a group house situation, and the fellows are responsible for checking in on them and being there for them and taking them out to run errands or on excursions or stuff like that. So that's how you kind of get involved there. And in Marion, we go and visit with residents and do activities in the nursing home. And I guess that's also what they do in Pomona.
Yeah.
That's like the big difference, honestly, between the two sites. And then community center program.
Yeah. So actually, this is a very similar aspect along all of our sites. So we all do community center programming. Again, a little different in each site. So I'll just go through each site and what they do. But in Greensboro, our boss, Dr. Dorsey, he is actually a psychiatrist. So what they do for the community center programming is they work in his waiting room and provide, entertainment for a doctor's appointment, because no one likes sitting in a waiting room for 45 minutes doing nothing. So they provide, exercise classes, nutritional support. They do arts and crafts. They do all these different types of activities. And that's kind of how their community center programming is surrounded. And that's 2 days a week on Tuesdays and Thursdays. For us, at our site, we actually do 3 different things. So we, at our particular site, want to work with the current institutions that are in town. So we work in a clinic here in town, doing a similar thing to what is done in Greensboro, but we also work with a nutrition site in town, and we also work with an apartment complex, so a housing facility. So we do similar things that Greensboro would do, but in 3 different sites. So each of us are able to experience like a kind of a different environment. And then in Pomona, they actually work with a senior living classes. So they go help older individuals, I think, I'm not too sure which days it is. So I could ask if you are wondering, but they go out and help them, and they kind of focus on older individuals with their community center programming. So it's just a way for, people to socialize that want it in town, and to provide, different support, whether it's from, those exercise classes, nutrition, or arts and crafts. I'm trying to think of what else. I think,
yeah. It's like the main idea is just kind of giving people like a place to gather together and be with each other that they normally wouldn't have. And we will say, like, for the Marion site, we're kind of in flux right now because of changes due to COVID-19. And so our community center programs might not look the same next year as they do this year. So especially with the nutrition site, they're going through a lot of changes right now. So that might transition to a little different next year. Just a disclaimer. There it goes. And so this is what we both just came from. So we do in-school youth programming. We call it power hours, 3 times a week. So you're there for about 2 hours in the afternoons. We do these across all the sites, and we work with small groups of students from like anywhere 2 to 4 per fellow. And the idea really is to give them sort of individualized attention to sort of address the gaps in their understanding. A lot of students fell behind, especially because of COVID. And so we're really trying to help support the teachers, and they, give us what they're working on. They say, here, we're working on verb tenses today. And so we kind of sit there and meet the kids where they're at and try to get them at the level that everybody else is at, so that they can move on to the next grade with a good level of understanding. And the main idea there is really also just to sort of provide kind of a relationship to these students. Like, a lot of them kind of hate school because they're not doing well, or because, they don't feel like they understand it. And so they don't want to be there. And so by bringing us in, the hope is that we can kind of make it a little more of an enjoyable experience, and then they sort of don't hate learning as much, and that they really do have the tools to succeed in their future.
So, this is kind of like the miscellaneous page. If you didn't realize, we do a lot of different things, and this is just more additional things we do. And I think it's important to remember that like this is a nonprofit, so you also get an understanding over the time being here of how a nonprofit does run, and the pluses and minuses of running a nonprofit. So a lot of that comes with like budget management. So we help with the budget and going through it and how to manage finances. There's like admin work. So for example, when we do work with health partners, you do have to take notes, and you do like to, make sure you're actually trying to improve the individual instead of getting into a cycle, just like repetitive help. And fundraising and development, yes, like helping with grants are especially important here with nonprofits. A lot of recruitment, what we're doing now with you guys, and just like making sure that we're not at the same level in our nonprofit, but trying to continually make sure it's in a better place. It kind of comes from these different responsibilities.
Okay, so I guess it's the end. Apply for fellowship today.
I know that was a lot of information.
Where's the COVID?
Yeah, I guess we could talk about COVID a little bit, but it did change. It kind of put us behind a little bit. There's definitely, our program is really focused on the community, right? So when your community shut down for a year or two, you tend to fall behind. But one positive I would say about COVID is that now that we are kind of hopefully coming out of it, the community is really wanting to like have that like interaction and to really, get back into it. And I think a lot of people do miss it. So, COVID may have put us back maybe a few years, but it really did kind of pull the community together.
So like in terms of what that means for like you as like a fellow, I don't know if this will really affect you guys, but when we go places, when we go to school, we wear masks. When we go to the nursing home, we wear masks. When we go, like our health partners one-on-one, we wear masks. We're all vaccinated. It's not a requirement of this program, but yeah, we all just kind of are. So if you're not vaccinated, that's a maybe consider it, just because you're going to put yourself in sort of a vulnerable position with like children and the elderly community members, and you probably would get sick at some point. But yeah, it's not a requirement. And I'm trying to think what other things changed. Some of the programming, like I said earlier, like the community programming, that's probably going to change a little bit because we're coming out of COVID. So it's looking a little bit different now. And so some of the things we have been doing, we might change trajectory. And then I know some of the things we're involved with are sort of closing down because they're all like sort of focused on remote stuff and not really in person. And so if we can move to more in-person things, we are looking to make that transition rather than just sort of long distance sort of interactions with individuals. So those would be like the big things that maybe would affect you guys in the future. But yeah. So those are probably the main changes with COVID. So I guess now we have time for questions. If anyone has any, I'm sure you have many, but
I know that was a lot of rambling and a lot of information. So, we could also put our emails in the chat because
Libby or Elizabeth? Okay. That's the email, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I have a question really quick.
Yeah.
So when you both were selecting your sites, like what thought process did you have when you were going through your like site selection process?
I could go first. I know no Spanish, even though I grew up in a community that was heavily Hispanic, but I just knew like I wouldn't be beneficial in the Pomona site because I think there's other people who do that job better than I would. So I applied to Alabama, and then between the two sites. So I think in the beginning, what happens is you get into either California or Alabama. And then once you get into one of those places, then you could choose between Marion and Greensboro. And between Marion and Greensboro, I ended up choosing Marion because I'm interested in geriatric medicine. So if you are interested in older individuals, this site is really great. And also Pomona is really for it because there's a lot of interaction with, older populations. But I think going back to, if I had to do it again, I'd want to emphasize that Marion and Pomona are more building of programs. So there's a strong possibility when you get to those sites, it's not going to be exactly what will be at the end of the year because they're very new programming and there's a lot of adaptability that comes with it. And then Greensboro, you might not have a lot of input. That program is really what it will be at the end of the year. But it's a very strong program. So there's not a lot of community program building in those. Yeah, I think really right now when you're applying, you just really have to think about, do I want to be in California or do I want to be in Alabama? And then if you do choose Alabama, you'll have plenty of time, I would say, later on to, and they give you resources later on if you do choose Alabama of here, they give you like a whole list of all the differences.
So yeah, I think I went through the same thing. I know no Spanish. I tried learning many times and I'm not, languages are not my forte by a long shot. I'm not very good at English either. So I knew that that just wasn't for me. And I also wanted the rural aspect specifically. That's the aspect I was really interested in. So I didn't really want the urban Pomona experience, even though I'm sure it's fantastic in California, right? So that was the two big factors for me. And then I did intentionally pick Marion. You can kind of just say undecided, or you can pref Marion and Greensboro after you get accepted. And I prepped Marion because I do sort of like that more community building. I like kind of starting with less things and sort of shaping things as they go and kind of getting in the community, learning what resources there are, where we can be the best help to the community. And we can really sort of build on the structure of the community in the best way. And so that's just something I was also interested in learning about based on my future aspirations. But yeah, so that's what she said, something to consider if you really do sort of getting in the weeds of things and really sort of building on things and finding a direction you want something to go in, then Marion or Pomona might be something to consider. But yeah, so I think that's probably the biggest thing. I hope I answered your question, considering it's kind of long and rambly.
Thank you.
I have a question. What would you guys say has been the most, the biggest learning experience, and also what has been something I guess you didn't expect, but you had to adapt to it? That makes sense.
I think I can first. Okay. Maybe I have to do those I might have to do those in the other way because I'm trying to think of my biggest learning experience. There's been a lot. I think the thing that kind of adapt to a little bit is, so like I said earlier, I'm very interested in sort of building things and creating things that are useful to individuals. I didn't realize kind of how slow it was going to be. So that's something that you kind of have to keep in mind, that change on any level takes a long time, but especially when you're working with the community, it takes a lot longer than you anticipate. And so you really have to be patient with change and understand that what you want the program to look like at the end of the year is probably what it's going to look like at the end of 5 years. Mm-hmm. And so just kind of having that realistic expectation that you're not going to really change as much as you want to kind of coming into it. And not going to change, but just build and create as much as you want to. This is all about providing opportunities for people. And so just sort of that, it takes a while to build these opportunities and create these programs that are of use to the community. Still not quite sure the learning experience.
I think for me, I'm not too sure what you want to go in later in life. But most occupations, especially if you're looking in healthcare, is personal interactions, face-to-face interactions. And I think Project Horseshoe Farm has done a great job of giving me the skill set of being able to, walk into a room and feel comfortable talking to strangers and really working to build a relationship from having no knowledge of the individual. And, depending if you want to, go into healthcare, any aspect of it, or even just business or nonprofit work, education, you're going to have meet new people all the time and really try to connect with them. And I think, yeah, that social aspect has really this program has forced me to get that social aspect, which I'm really grateful for. I think it's a useful skill.
Yeah, probably I'd say that. Get the best at is talking to random people you have nothing in common with.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions?
I actually would love for you both to speak. So we get a lot of students that are in their senior year that are, and I'm sure you were in this boat last year, that are considering, well, do I go straight into med school or professional school or graduate school? Do I look at a gap year experience? Do I just find an internship or get some work experience? Like, a host of do I do this or this or this or that? Can you speak a little bit to how you navigated that process during your senior year and what led you to ultimately choosing Project Horseshoe Farm as like, no, this is what I want to do right now?
Yeah. So I kind of figured out junior year that I needed a gap because I was looking at my resume and I'm like, wow, I have like no clinical experience. This is great. This is perfect for me wanting to be a doctor. They'll totally accept me like this. And so I knew like the upcoming summer between junior and senior year, I was going to get a lot of experience because I was going to be a CNA that summer. And so I was like, perfect. So that was also a very interesting experience, being a CNA during COVID. That's a whole separate thing. And so I knew I needed a gap year. And then I had a volunteer experience between freshman and sophomore year, where I had worked in a, and so I kind of knew I wanted to go back and sort of live in one for a longer period of time and understand a little bit more about the intricacies of the healthcare system in rural areas and what challenges they face the most and where, the healthcare system sort of needs the most overhaul when it comes to improving patient experience and outcome. And so that's kind of what led me to like the rural aspect. And personally, I've always been sort of drawn to more like service-oriented things. I think I like kind of being part of like the structure, and I do sort of like that mission that they have. And so I was looking at this, and I was looking at the Jesuit Volunteer Corps Northwest, if any of you know what that is. It's also a rural service in the middle of absolute nowhere. But Project Horseshoe kind of responded to me first, and I also liked sort of being in the South, closer to my family instead of Alaska. And so that's also to consider something, how close you want to be to the people you know. If you don't want to be close, maybe California is the place to go, but go to Pomona. But yeah, so I just kind of looked at my resume one day and figured that I was not a strong applicant and that I really needed to do things to fit. And so then I focused my senior summer on, and then also like this experience did kind of give me a better understanding of what I want to do. So yeah, I'd say take a good long look at your resume and figure out what you're missing, if anything, to get into med school, because it is a very expensive process. If no one's told you it's expensive, I'm telling you, it's really expensive, and you really only want to do it once. So you got to make it count, and like you got to give yourself like the best possible shot.
I think it was the exact opposite for me, because I knew it academically, but in times in life, you're not emotionally ready to move on to the next thing, and it's totally okay to like recognize that you've been working so hard for 4 years, but you're just not ready to take on your next maybe academic goal, whether it be in education or in your career at maybe you want to do nonprofit work or public health or med school, nursing school, whatever it is. And I don't know, I always think it's okay not to be ready for the next step and want to take a gap between it. And I think Project Horseshoe Farm, does provide skills in that gap year that will help you for your future endeavors. And so whether it's academically you're not ready or emotionally you're not ready for the next thing, and certainly, I think gap years are a great choice and are looked on favorably now by a lot of, future.
Yeah. The best thing I ever heard was from a doctor, and a much older doctor, and he said, enjoy your detours. Because Because it's like, if you like look at your like med school journey or your grad school journey or your whatever, you know, like you want to go be this great consulting agent somewhere or whatever, you know, like this is considered like a detour or whatever. But, you know, you got to enjoy that time. And it's really is like, you know, we've made a lot of friends here. Marion is such like a very specific community, and I'm kind of glad that I like got to come to Marion. I'd never heard of it before this. So yeah, just like find something that you want to enjoy and you want to do if you're kind of unsure about your next step. That's good job, Libby.
I had a question. I'd like to know, what would you guys say would be your biggest challenge going through this process?
The med school process, or being a fellow, or like applying for the fellowship? Sorry, I'm like,
it's okay. During the fellowship.
Okay. Just wanted to clarify before I started about the application.
I have one.
Okay.
You know, I grew up in a city and in a city, and I was always surrounded by people just like me. And I'm in an area of people that do not think like me most of the time. And it's definitely adjustment, because, you know, you might agree with someone and they're super nice and you're friendly on a personal level, but there's like different things you do disagree with. And I think it is a big challenge because, you know, it's definitely hard working. I think just hard working as a team sometimes and working with the community, especially if you're not on the same page. So it's definitely been a challenge, you know, trying to express how you feel without, you know, like going against how they feel. And I think it's been a challenge, I guess, like, yeah, working with community members who are like that, or even like if we disagree with, you know, something we want getting done in the program. So maybe just working as a team and working with people with like differing opinions.
Yeah. I don't like the planning stuff. I like the action stuff. So there's a lot of planning, and I personally struggle with that a little bit. So I'm like, okay, let's do it. You know, and so it's kind of part of like what Libby was saying, with when you're working in a team or with community members or with organizations in the community. There's a lot of steps you got to go through, and a lot of people you have to talk to. And so sometimes it's just like really, really, really slow. And things just like don't happen sometimes because you just sort of run out of time, or the window of opportunity sort of closed a little bit. So yeah, it's just, sometimes it's like frustratingly slow for me personally. But yeah, I'd say that's kind of like having patience, and a little bit of grace for other people who also have busy schedules and different priorities. I'd say is kind of a challenge for me personally.
Also the weather.
Oh,
I'm from Pennsylvania.
The weather's not bad.
So
if you're from Florida, the weather's not bad, guys.
It's better here, but the weather's been hard.
Yeah, that's a challenge. Yeah. I have 3 questions. Okay. What does your day-to-day look like? How is the Marion community and living there? And I'm from Florida, so all right, Florida. So day-to-day is a little different for like everybody all the time. So sorry, that was not going to be the most straightforward answer. Yeah.
What you do.
So my schedule, everyone has like a variation of my schedule. It's just like day dependent. So Monday, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays, we have morning meetings. So we're all in that. And then on Mondays, I have like a block of time in the morning where I visit my health partners, and sort of get some admin work done if I have like a little extra time in there. And then we have lunch, and then we do school. And then from about 3 to Mondays, we leave Marion if we go into Greensboro at 4 for discussion. So Mondays, I have like a little bit of time after school, and then we do discussion, and that can be anywhere from like 2 to 4 hours. Sometimes it gets long because sometimes we watch movies.
Yes,
So be prepared for
that.
the movie. We watched Forrest Gump the other day, so we were there for a while. And then Tuesdays, I do the nursing home in the morning, and then I have the same thing, school in the afternoon, and then just like a block of time from 3 to 5. And I'm going to visit health partner tomorrow. Wednesday is our community engagement day, so that is where we work with other organizations in the community. So I work with a nonprofit for 2 hours in the morning, and then I work at the library for 3 all in the same morning. And then I have that whole afternoon. Everybody has that whole afternoon. for like health partners and stuff. And so I go visit one of my ladies that afternoon. And then Thursdays, I do my community program. So I was doing the nutrition site, and we used to go in there and play dominoes with people while they were eating and play cards and chit chat with them, and sort of get involved in that community. The nutrition site is Marion's senior center. And so they get meals from the state of Alabama because they qualify based on age and then also income. And then even if you don't qualify based on income, you can still like come and pay for a meal. So we would come and sit and chit chat. And they used to throw little parties and stuff, but they're really struggling right now because of the pandemic. And then they've had a lot of infrastructure issues with the building. So we transitioned more to food delivery with them, which is nice because then you get to see a lot more people that way too. And then in the afternoons, it's a school again. And then after that, I go visit a bunch of people. And now Fridays are like the interesting day for all of us. In the morning, that's my other block of time in the morning. And so I go visit some of my other health partners in the morning. I have two that really like morning visits, which not everybody has. So I have to visit them Monday or Friday because they will do not want to talk to me in the afternoon. And then on Friday afternoons, we have a lunch, and then we have something called Porch Fridays. I don't remember what the things stand for. People and organizations.
Well, we go out into the surrounding communities, and we like meet with different people. It's actually, I think, one of the most fun things is you get to go to Birmingham or Montgomery or even just different places in Marion that you wouldn't typically experience and talk to a lot of unique people.
Mm-hmm. And the idea is that through that we sort of get a better understanding of who's in the community, what's in the area, and sort of just what we can do and kind of direct people towards. So one of the ones we did in Marion was we talked to the rural health clinic because we don't currently work with them, but we're trying to form a relationship with them. So we got to know them and they got to know us. And then we went and helped with a technology voter registration event at another nonprofit in town. And we got to hear from people who were part of the civil rights movement in Marion. There's a lot of them, by the way. So Marion is really the Selma. And a lot of the people who were
the freedom fighters. We meet a lot of freedom fighters here, which is
that was pretty cool.
A really great benefit of Marion. I mean, the history here is just amazing. How's the Marion community? Marion community is small. It's a 3,000 population. It's very food insecure, and it is an impoverished area. I think just to be blunt about it, it's a very much different living experience than I had growing up. I grew up very privileged compared to here. I absolutely love it. The community is so welcoming and nice. Living with the other fellows is great. Living with other people of your age. The towns you may go to may not have a great young population, but you always have, the other 8 to 10 fellows that are your age, and you're able to bond. I don't know. I actually like living here.
Yeah, everyone in Marion is super nice. If you walk down the street, everyone knows you, and you'll probably get stopped like 500 times. Yes, a lot of free food. What else do we get? I don't know, we just get stopped a lot, honestly. But, and a lot of free food.
I was always worried about moving here. It's a different city, and it's, you're kind of pushed outside your comfort zone. But I think even though you will probably still worry about it, but I don't know, living here is not really, like, it's actually one of the really great benefits.
You get invited to like everything. There's a dinner on Wednesday nights at one of the Baptist churches that we get invited to. And then we serve meals there sometimes, so that's fun. None of us are professional chefs, so that's always an interesting experience. And then we go to darts on Friday nights.
There is stuff.
So there's stuff.
And then holidays and family time. We get 15 vacation days, which is pretty similar to other fellowships. I want to see like AmeriCorps is around like 1 to 2 days every month. I think it's a typical job is like around 15 days typically. I would say the only downside about it is if you are interviewing for a lot of like med schools, those do come out on your personal days. But I guess that's just, you can't control like, how many interviews you get for the next thing. But I think there's time, like we also get all days off. So, and we even got Black Friday off, which I don't even, is that a federal holiday? I don't even know, but there's definitely time to visit family. You're from, I don't know, there's a lot of direct flights, right?
Yeah, so I actually drive a lot. I drove when I went home for Thanksgiving. I don't know where you were from in Florida. Jacksonville to Marion is about 7.5 hours. Not fun necessarily, but doable.
I had a flight to Miami and it was only like $200. So like, it's not like, yeah.
There's Birmingham Airport and there's Montgomery Airport, and they both fly so they fly American Airlines to like Charlotte and Philadelphia. So if you can get there, you can get anywhere. So yeah, it's not bad. The only thing is if you're a Greensboro fellow with the housing program, since that is a Project Horseshoe Farm thing, like we run that, you do have to work some holidays and they'll sort of sort that out for you. You get that day back. If you work on Christmas, you would get like an extra vacation day. But if being home for the holidays is something that's really, really important to you, that is a consideration, I would say, to think about.
Yeah, but they usually don't have like, you know, there's always someone who doesn't care about staying on Christmas where you get it. Like it always it worked out perfectly fine this year, I know, with girls.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's not too bad. You can visit people.
And you could always stay with your new Marion family.
Yeah, you've built some friends. That's what we call it.
Thank you. I actually thought of another question about like transportation and how that works, because you said you go so many places, so many days. So how does that work?
So you have to have your own car here, and you will use it to transport people places sometimes. So especially in Marion, we drive people to the doctors a lot, and so one of my ladies, I go and I pick her up, and then we go to the grocery store or we go to her doctor's office in Marion. It's local transportation only. You're not supposed to drive people to Montgomery or to Tuscaloosa or to Birmingham without explicit permission from your site director and possibly also Dr. Dorsey, who is the overall supervisor. So that's something to keep in mind, but because it will come up at some point. But yeah, you have to have your own car and it is used for general transportation.
But we can get a gas stipend. I also like gas is usually reimbursed, and if you do have to drive to like Montgomery, you stay for a porch visit, you get paid back
like the federal average for the gas reimbursement if you have to drive for a porch. You don't get reimbursed though if you drive somebody just to like the doctor's office. Like that's just like, sort of within your gas stipend. But I feel like it mostly covers it as long as you don't have well, I don't know. She takes the most expensive gas. So.
It depends on your car, but I think it's it's very doable. But yeah, definitely driver's license, and you do have to have a car. It's like a requirement. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's all. That's just one of the negatives. But it's just because there's so little transportation here in rural areas that you do have to help out with that.
Any other questions for Claire and Libby? Well, Claire and Libby, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your experiences. It's been very informative.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Yeah,
sorry if it was rambling the whole time.
I frequently ramble with my students, so it's more of the same with so I appreciated it. So especially hearing your experiences, I think that'll be very helpful for our students that are applying.
Yeah, thank you.
And I just wanted to add real quick, if you all are interested in applying for Project Horseshoe Farm, I'm putting my email in the chat as well. If you missed out introductions in the beginning, I'm the graduate assistant for the Office of National Fellowships. So definitely reach out to me and we will set up a time to meet, talk about your application, and we will help host you through that process. So.
Thank you guys.
Very nice meeting you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye.